So what about your
um,
adulthood? Anything unusual that strike you?
so I have for a period of time. It hasn't happened in the last 3 or 4 years, but there were a lot of times where I was prone to like sleep paralysis. And for those that don't know what sleep paralysis is, the scientific explanation or semi-scientific explanation is that when you sleep, your body produces a chemical that makes you that basically paralyzes you. So if you're moving in your sleep, you're not moving when you're awake. Um, but there's a certain point in time where you may be dreaming, and you wake up mentally, but your body hasn't caught up, so you can't move or anything like that. The one thing about it is, every time you experience, people have been documented experiencing something like that. They always have these just outrageously scary sightings or events that occur. So, like for me, I remember times where I've been experiencing sleep paralysis, and I've seen a man that off in the distance that was just a dark figure, and he was coming for me, and it scared me, and I couldn't run, I couldn't say, I couldn't speak anything. There have been times where
Wait a minute, describe the man. Did he have a
it
hat?
was, which just jogs the memory, takes me back to Roy North Road and a story that Alex told about the black figure in the house
Yeah.
on Roy North Road. Um, and that might be, a coincidence, but the story if people haven't gone back and watched Alex's video, they should go back and watch it. But the story I heard about the man in Roy North Road, or the ghost in Roy North Road, was our sister Jody's husband at the time, Andy. When mom and dad were moving in, Andy looked out at the pond that was behind the house, and he saw a black figure standing on the pond. And he's like, "Hey, who's that? What's that?" And he disappeared. Well, shortly after moving into Roy North Road, and again, I never lived at this house. I stayed there a few times, but I never lived there. By this time, I was on my own. I was in the Army, doing my own thing. Um, but this black figure um, showed up in the house, but it was only upstairs, from what I understand. And I remember when I brought my then fiance home to meet mom and dad and the family, they had her stay upstairs. And I never told her anything about any ghost or anything like that. Um, but one morning, after she got up and she came downstairs, one morning she told me that she saw a black figure, a black ghost, like just a shadow, in the room where she was staying. And it kind of freaked her out. I never saw it myself. That was her saying it. I
Mhm.
never said anything about it. It was just, she just said, "Hey, I saw this," and she was really freaked out by it. She was a devout Christian, so it really rocked her world seeing that. And then, if I remember correctly, the story, from what I understand, is that ghost figure, that whatever you want to call it, stayed only upstairs in that house until mom went to the hospital, where she eventually died. While she was in the hospital, then it started being seen downstairs. And then shortly after mom died, how much time I don't know, but then it just kind of went away. It was never seen again. Um, but again, those are just my memories from what I was told. I never lived there. I never
Right.
saw it. Just my future ex-wife saw it.
It does sort of dovetail with the stuff that Alex was talking about, though, because he did live there temporarily.
Yeah,
And so there was something in that house, clearly.
yeah, yeah. Clearly there was. Um, Now, fast forwarding and going back to me with that, um, with the sleep paralysis event, that was just a dark figure. He looked like he had some sort of top hat on, or not a top hat, but a hat on with a brim that went all the way around, and almost like a trench coat. Um, but I couldn't make out any features, just like a face or anything like that. Everything was just dark and black. and I tried to scream out, tried to move, and I couldn't move, and it freaks you out even more. And it kind
That's
of
interesting. Matt, I didn't mean to. I hope I didn't feed you a false memory, but are you aware of the universal, worldwide phenomenon of the Hat Man?
no.
Oh, there's a book on the subject. Um, a female author who has a radio show. I got her book on Amazon because I watched one of her videos on YouTube talking about the Hat Man. And in the book, she sort of analyzes these sightings. What you saw is a uh, universal character, entity that people see when they're in sleep paralysis, and it's always described exactly as you described him.
Really?
Possibly human, always malevolent, staring, wearing a broad-brimmed hat. Sometimes the hat varies, but generally it's broad-brimmed, and possibly a trench coat. To me, the figure, the series of horror films with the, oh my God, I can't remember the name. It had come to me too late. There were 3 horror films with this character that comes alive every 20 years.
Candyman?
No, not Candyman. Oh my God, it had come to me. He drives a truck, an old truck, and he comes and harvests people's bodies. Anyway,
Jeepers
physically,
Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers. The Jeepers Creepers guy to me is an embodiment of the Hat Man mythos,
Yeah.
physically. So
Okay.
you're not alone. Your independent retelling is of a character that has been reported for many years now.
You'll have to include a link to the book on this YouTube video.
I think you're right.
So other things that I've seen during like the events, I saw this one just really creepy old lady, hardly any hair, super wrinkly face, like a pointy nose, and she was coming out of the ceiling, and she was coming for me, and I couldn't move, couldn't talk, couldn't scream, couldn't do anything. And I saw that one a few times in a couple of different houses where I've lived at here for the last few years. I've been living in Port Angeles for 12, almost 13 years now, I guess. And in a couple of different houses, I saw the same old lady coming out of the ceiling, like she was coming for me.
That's interesting.
And it was only when I would like cry out to like Jesus, like Jesus help me, that I could start to move or anything. And it was really, really unnerving. If you've ever had a dream, and that's probably my thing, because now as I'm saying this, it reminds me of a really super vivid dream that I had way back in the 89, 90. And I'll tell this story, and then don't let me forget to tell the story about the glass.
Hold on a second.
So this is a dream, and as we're talking, a lot of stuff is coming up. So I hope the watchers or listeners will bear with it. But this was a dream that I had when I was, oh gosh, just super young. I was 18, maybe 19 years old. I was 18. My first daughter had just been born. Her mom was off at like a Bible study or something, and at the time, I had no use for God. And that obviously that changed later on in life. But at the time, I had no use for God, and I had a dream. I was asleep on the sofa, and my oldest daughter, she was off in bed for the night. And in the dream was our sister Jody and our brother Alex. And there was this, for lack of a better word, I've always just called it a demon. Now this demon was maybe 3 or 4 feet high, had red eyes, couldn't make out any facial features, but it was wearing like shiny armor, and it had almost like conquistador armor. It was weird.
Okay.
And it had a dagger. and it was chasing all of us around. But mainly me. It was chasing Alex, it was chasing Jody, but it was mainly chasing me. And I was trying to come between it and Jody and Alex. So of course I would be the target. But then it jumped up and it stabbed me in the heart with this dagger. And I fell to the ground and I couldn't do anything. And I could feel, for lack of a better word, I could feel my life leaving me. Almost like I was a pitcher and water was being poured out of it, only it was coming out of my feet. I could feel it leaving my head. I could feel it getting past my shoulders, and everything was just going numb as this feeling was leaving me. And then finally, at like the last minute, I remember saying something along the lines of, Jesus, help me. And as soon as I said that, then the life started coming back. And I could feel it going up past my ankles, past my knees, my waist, into my chest, my shoulders. And when it got to the top of my head, I woke up. Now, I smoked at the time. And the first thing I did when I woke up, I was exhausted. And I was like, I need a cigarette. I was so weak, I could not physically lift up a cigarette to put it in my mouth. And that has just been one of the most incredible dreams,
that's not a dream
that I've ever had.
Yeah, that's not a dream. That's a spiritual experience. Something happened to you there.
Oh yeah, as you siblings, as you, my siblings, will testify. I went way super religious. Did some preaching. Things like that. As a matter of fact, I'm currently ordained. I don't preach, but if you need a wedding done, let me know. Hook me up.
I'm too old. Nobody will ever marry me again.
Well, that wasn't for you, Ralph. That was for your three watchers. You're the 3 people that subscribe to your channel.
Okay. This interview is over.
And so that dream just stands out in my memory. And I've had a few dreams like that, but nothing ever as vivid. And that wasn't an episode of sleep paralysis or anything like that. It was a very, very vivid dream. And then fast forward a few months, and I remember having an experience with my wife at the time, a couple of experiences. One of them was her and I were laying in bed, and we both felt the entire bed just shake, almost like you would see in a movie, like where the clothes were coming up. It wasn't super violent, but it was noticeable. And I thought it was just me. But then she was like, "Did you just feel that?" And I remember this was the wife that saw the black figure at Mom and Dad's house off Rolling North Road. And so we were talking about it. We both felt the bed shake, which was kind of scary. We didn't really do anything about it, but we were like, "Wow, okay." And then there was an incident, at least one time, where I remember we went to bed, and next thing I know, I was floating. I was above us, looking down on us. And then something happened, and like my wife shook me, and I jerked awake. But I remember looking down, and that I believe that certain things are possible, like astral projection. And I think so. I think that might have been an episode of that. I've never tried to do that knowingly,
right?
But there's been, at least that one that I remember. I believe there's another one, but I can't give any specifics about it. But that goes back to Alex's story about him walking through his neighborhood at night with something chasing him. I believe that was a form of astral projection. and not just a dream.
Well, I agree. And if you see yourself externally looking down, Matt, that's really happening. Because think about most dreams. That's not what they entail. There's some, illogic. You're in a world that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
If you're, a situation where you're looking down at yourself, laying in bed, what kind of dream is that? Your mind's not going to make that up.
No.
That's you looking down at yourself in bed.
Yeah, and it was real time. It wasn't like at some point in the future. It was like right then.
So is that pretty much the entirety of your memories or your experiences?
I have one last story, and that happened here in the last few years.
Okay.
And it happened again here in Port Angeles, where I live. It was at a local restaurant, which I won't name. But I was out on a date, and I was having a glass of wine. We were having a glass of wine. This was like my first glass of wine, so I wasn't drunk. But we were talking. I took a sip of wine, and we were sitting at a table, and it was a booth. The table was flat. And I set the glass of wine down on the table, and as we're talking, the glass just started sliding halfway across the table. And it went from like my left side in between us and to my right side. And I remember looking at my date and her looking at me and just being like, you saw that happen, right? And she was like, oh yeah, I saw it. And then during the course of the conversation, because she had lived here a lot longer than me, there had always been rumors that this local restaurant had been haunted. And people had seen things like, people had reported seeing things like a almost like a cowboy-like figures standing around after hours when nobody was supposed to be there, things like that. And that just happened, 5-6 years ago. But to the best of my knowledge, that's the last time I remember anything that vivid.
Right.